Remo. And remember, you can engage us through our social media platforms, that is TV47KE on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Remember to write where you're writing, to tell us exactly where you're writing from, and of course your name. Well, let's begin. Kenya has recorded 11 more COVID-19 cases, bringing the number to 281 as 2 more people recover from the dreaded virus. Now, the total recovery cases stand at 69 with 14 deaths. Elizabeth Mutuku now reports.
As the world continues to grapple with an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases, Kenya's numbers are also at steady increase. The Ministry of Health today announced 11 more cases, bringing the total to 281 infections. Of the 11 cases, 6 are males and 5 females who hail from Nairobi and Mombasa counties.
Of these confirmed cases, 7 are Kenyans from Mombasa. And in that Mombasa area, we have got quite a few, I think 3 are from Bondeni in the old town in Mombasa. We have a few also from other areas, Miritini. I think we have a case from Miritini. And a couple of other areas within Mombasa town itself. The other 4 are from Nairobi, and those ones are from Ruaka.
Kagwe has urged Kenyans to focus on the measures put in place by government, owing the fact that majority of the cases are from quarantine and those who came in contact with the patients who have tested positive for the dreaded virus.
And there goes the whole idea, and why we are always talking about keeping distance. That's why we are always talking about people going around and not taking care and not wearing masks. These are some of the results that we are getting as a result of these shortfalls.
883 people are in quarantine and another 425 are in forced quarantine for defying curfew measures and disobedience to the law.
Out during curfew hours, it is assumed that you have now been exposed, and therefore, if you are taken, you'll be taken to a quarantine site for 14 days at your own cost.
Kagwe in his address has urged the residents of Machakos, Kajiado, Kiambu and Murang'a to be vigilant as some of the cases are transported from Nairobi and its metropolis.
You have a special responsibility to guard against the spread of coronavirus from Nairobi County.
Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47 Nairobi.
Well, that is definitely one of the stories that we intend on keeping our eyes on and bringing you all the details as we get them. So stay tuned to TV47 for everything on COVID-19. Now, businesses across the country and the globe are trying to figure out how to operate in new ways. Basically, the ability to absorb a shock or to the COVID-19 and to come out of it better than the competition will be the key to survival and long-term prosperity. Now, by the way, even when lockdown restrictions begin to ease, companies must still find a way to position their businesses to be resilient in the face of this and the next global threat, if any. Now, to discuss this topic, we have Dr. Exen Iraki, who is an economics analyst. And of course, we also have James Iraya, who is a business analyst, here to discuss with us on Skype. Definitely, this gentleman know a lot more about matters, COVID-19, and the impact on businesses. I don't know if my director can just get them, and we are trying to get them on Skype just to have them on the screen. Remember, tonight's discussion, we're basically talking about the COVID-19 impact. If you can hear me, Dr. Iraki?
I can hear you very well.
And of course, also that is Dr. Exen Iraki, who is an economics analyst. And of course, we also have James Ira, who is a business analyst. And gentlemen, I mean, it's such an unfortunate time for anyone who's trying to run a business right now. Looking at basically what is happening right now, trying to understand the impact of COVID-19 on businesses. I want us to begin by first understanding the impact as it is right now. And I'll begin with you, Dr. Iraki.
it can't have been a worse time for us to be visited by COVID-19. People prefer to call it coronavirus. But there's a silver lining before we go to the bad side of COVID-19. We are lucky that the weather has been very nice. It has been raining for the last 2 years. So even if we have all other problems, we might have enough food to feed the nation. Never mind that we are sharing it with some locusts. But anytime there is such bad show, which is global in perspective, we tend to have everybody suffering, whether you are rich, whether you are poor, whichever status you have, we all end up suffering. I was looking at the price of oil this morning. Mm-hmm. I was finding that it has dropped to about less than $20 a barrel. That is another silver lining, that when the price of oil goes down, it's going to affect positively the price of goods and services. Mm-hmm. So all is not bad. Let's start with the positive side, then we go to the negative side. The worst one is unemployment. A lot of young men and women, old and young, are going to end up losing their jobs. There's nothing more tragic than losing your job, losing your daily bread.
You know, Dr. Iraqi, before we even look at the positive side, I just want us to understand, well, the negative impact as it is. You've mentioned the dropping of oil prices. That's one of the major impacts that you've mentioned right now. And of course, it has been felt across the country. But I want to throw this question now to James Iraya, business analyst. I just want you to tell us exactly what's the impact of COVID-19 on losses as far as businesses are concerned, what you've been able to witness.
I hope you can hear me properly.
Yes, we can.
Yes. So as even what Dr. Iraqi is actually saying, that unemployment is one of the biggest crisis that you're focusing right now. We can also look at some of the industries that are on a go slow, or even say almost dead. Things like a tourism industry right now in Kenya. No one is now a tourist. No one is going to visit areas. Sports industry in Kenya actually right now. No, players have been told to stay home. Fans who are actually used to go to stadiums cannot go and enjoy football. We also look at things like music industry. Right now, people who used to go to concerts and they would generate money from there. That's also an industry that is affected. Beverages, people who used to enjoy at least something small before they go home.
Hello, are you there, James?
Can you hear me properly?
Just proceed, James.
Yes, so I'm saying even beverages, people who used to enjoy something small before they went home. These are now people who are now being told now before 7 p.m. go home. And now this wherever they used to meet and converge, this is also an industry that has actually gone down. You even find retail industry, for example, things that are non-food, things like toys, things like books, things like any consumer electronics. These are industries that are being affected as we're speaking right now. Yeah.
You know, when you also talk about losses, and we've also seen some statistics coming up, are they really trickling down to what it means for the people who have lost jobs? Dr. Iraqi, what would you say about that, especially for job losses?
You know, one of the things we need to accept is the impact of COVID-19 will not be felt instantly. It's going to take some time before the full impact is felt. But what is going to happen immediately is that people are going to start shifting from the luxuries to what is necessary. Can I pay my rent? Can I have a roof over my house? Can I have enough food for my family? So there will be a lot of focus on the necessities of life before we think about other luxuries. That's why my friend is saying that things like tourism are going to become luxuries, things like drinking out are going to be luxuries, parties are going to be luxuries, sports are going to be luxuries. So people are going to first of all focus on what is most necessary before they think of bigger things. I'm really sympathetic to people who have been having business like selling cars. Nobody's going to buy a car at such a time. Nobody's going to buy a port at such a time. Nobody's going to invest in capital things at this hour. People are going to focus on the very basics. I'm also very particularly concerned about men and women who work in the informal sector, people who live one day at a time. When you say restaurants are not going to work, when you say mjengos are not going to work, when you say mama boga is not going to work, what are those people going to eat when they cannot get their daily bread? Remember, most of the people who work in the informal sector get their money today and consume it today. And that is what the government is supposed to be focusing on. That's what the very officials are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be focusing on the vulnerable members of the society, people who have no savings. And there's a good reason why you need to focus on that, because if you neglect that particular group, then people are not just going to get hungry and start on the streets and start smiling.
Dr.
That's how
Iraqi,
crime comes in.
when you say the government should start focusing on the vulnerable people who are doing informal jobs, what will be your advice? What are your sentiments on what the government can do right now in terms of maybe policy formulation and anything else that they can actually do?
I think the government is already doing something good. I saw the other day that the government is going to start giving money directly to the vulnerable members of the society. And the government has some experience. We used to give money to those men and women who are over 70 years old. So if you are over 70 years old, you'll get some stipend at the end of the month. I've always argued that the Huduma number was a great idea if it was put into good use. Why don't we get data for all the Kenyans so that we can know those who are vulnerable and those who are not vulnerable? If there's a crisis like this COVID-19, let's send money direct to people so that they can consume it and take care of their basic needs. I am of the opinion that we should not be giving people food, hunger, and so on. Just send money, possibly using M-Pesa, then they buy what they need. I don't think the government is very good in distributing food and so on. The market is better than that.
I don't know. What do you think, James? Dr. Iraqi, when you say that the government should instead give the households money instead of giving them food, why would money be a better alternative? But before you even answer that question, I just want to hear from James Irao. Do you think maybe households should be given money as opposed to being given food stuff?
Actually, I do support Dr. Iraqi because even India is actually sending money to people. And the reason why is because Kenya is an agricultural country, and you find that you may send to somebody unga, somebody who already has potatoes, somebody already who has maize. So somebody may want that money and maybe buy oil and maybe buy something else. So I'm also for the idea for money is better because now with money somebody can plan themselves and say, with this money I can do this and this and buy this. If you give me food, even so a governor here giving out something to throat sanitizers. You see, that is now a suggestion to consumers to take that as to take that product. But you will give me money, I'm able to plan myself. So I do agree with that.
All right. Well, Dr. Iraqi, when you talk about losses, we've mentioned losses for most of the businesses. There's also fears of a likely global recession. Do you think these fears are actually valid, or we're just being overly reactive?
I think the question is not whether we are going to have a global recession. The question is how deep it is going to be and how long it is going to last. When there's such a decrease in demand for goods and services, inevitably there will be a recession. So what we should be talking about now is what we can do as a government, as individuals, as corporations, so that we can mitigate the effect of this recession. In Western countries, they are coming up with these stimulus packages. In Kenya, the president came up with a stimulus package the other day to mitigate the effects of this recession. So I think all the efforts now will be focused on how we can reduce the effect of this recession because it is inevitable. It's not a question of fear, it's a reality.
All right. Well, I just want us to look at now businesses in terms of losses. You've mentioned, yes, the recession there and what governments can do. Dr. Iraqi, when we look at what businesses are dealing with right now, the question for many of them, of course, is how can they navigate the financial crisis that they're facing right now? And I'll just begin with you, James, because I'd like to hear your sentiments about this as a business analyst.
As of now, with businesses, what we're actually seeing is that people are now working from home. And as a cultural shift you will see going forward is this pandemic will last. As estimates from the Western countries are saying, a vaccine will come in the next 12 to 18 months, then this thing may be here to stay. So that in mind, then what businesses are doing is that they will now do a contactless business, where you'll find to do work from wherever they are. You will find also businesses will start reducing workspace. They will now invest in now having people work from wherever they are. They will also do something called automation, where now instead of having so many people in a factory or in an office, they will now tend to have few people who will be able to now be able to run the machines. Now, also something else on the economy. Companies now will now look at any brick and mortar store that used to sell to now walk-in customers. Now look at now maybe can I leverage on able to be able to sell to people online. Can I deliver goods to people? And I think that's now the cultural shift where people now businesses will tend to look at.
Well, more questions about that, especially on survival of some of those businesses. I know you're talking about how they can manage their affairs, their operational challenges, but
Mount Kenya University takes pride in being an academic giant with some of the best infrastructure, imparting knowledge to the best brains in the country and the region. Our members of faculty are keen to deliver market-driven programs in science and humanities with a keen focus on linkages with relevant organizations. We admit both self-sponsored and government-sponsored students under the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. Join us today and train with the best to become the best. Mount Kenya University, unlocking infinite possibilities.
Since late last year, the coronavirus COVID-19 has emerged as a serious healthcare threat. This is an infection that has gone global and no one has been spared. The government, through the Ministry of Health, has put in measures to keep Kenyans safe against COVID-19, which is currently rampant around the world, with new confirmed infections and death cases daily. Such sanitization and screening of visitors at this border post and across every entry point in the country is very vital in preventing the spread of the disease in the country.
I'm very happy about the screenings that are going on in Tanzania and Kenya. I think it's very proactive that you're thinking about stopping it at the border so that it does not spread.
It is scary that a single cough here can lead to an outbreak of epic proportions. In order to prevent that, the government has instituted measures to keep Kenyans safe.
The facility has all the equipments you need, from handling a basic patient up to ICU setting.
However, you also have a role to play in preventing spread of infections.
Citizen responsibility is the key to the success of this initiative and these measures. Let's all do what we have to do individually. And this is how we are going to defeat this disease.
It's just our general hygiene, okay? And that now means at workplaces, we should ensure that our work surfaces are clean.
Let's ensure that nimefanya proper sanitation ya mikono. Every time na board matatu, lazima ni sanitize mikono.
We have faced many severe challenges as a nation, and we have always found a way to rise above them. COVID-19 is no different, and we will overcome the pandemic. Stop coronavirus. Follow all directives from the Ministry of Health. Wash your hands properly.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching New Week right here on TV47. Remember, you can send in your views and comments through our social media platforms. That is TV47KE on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. By the way, if you do own a business, tell us what your experience is like at this moment. Remember, our panel today, we have Dr. Exen Iraki, who is an economics analyst, and also James Iraya, who is a business analyst. Well, before we took a short break, gentlemen, I was asking you, James, about how companies can navigate the financial crisis right now. I know you mentioned what they can do to cut down on costs, but I think the customer needs and the changing needs of the customers is something we need to consider, because that's where all the money comes from. So how do they deal with the changing needs of the customers?
It will actually really depend on the type of business that the company is now doing. Is it a business that relies on essential services? Is it a business that is relying on food? Is it a business that is relying on clothing? Is it a business that is relying on basic needs that right now, one or another, whether a pandemic is happening or not, this is something that clients do need. And if so, then the real issue will become, how do I now reach that product to my customer? Is it that now is my customer able to reach to come to where I am? And if not, how am I able to reach to them? Now, if it's a business that is, as Dr. was saying, is more of a leisure activity, something that somebody does after they have met the basic needs. And these are companies that, if the pandemic goes on for long, these are companies that we need to rethink the business model. These are companies that we need to think of innovative products that they will keep them, that products that customers are demanding right now, and products that will keep them actually at bay. But as terms of businesses, as of right now, the business, what they're doing is reducing cost. And you can actually see businesses are actually telling their employees to take a small pay cut so that at least they can be able to have a going concern. You're also seeing companies right now are reducing their expenditure on maybe things like ad revenues. You're seeing they're also giving offers to customers as a way of trying to lure them to also continue buy their products. So those are some of the ways businesses are trying to do.
You know, James, I'm trying to understand, even as you talk about that, I think the question I would shoot right now, because it's something that's lingering in my mind right now, sustainability and profitability. What is going to work for most companies right now? What should they pursue between the two, James?
It's a matter of sustainability. And if we really look at how a company is structured, is we normally have retained earnings, that these are money that a company normally retains from their profits to get from previous years, so that when it comes to a rainy day, they're able to at least use that. So most companies will tend to look at that and also try to also push on it by also reducing the expenditure as much as possible. So it's a matter of sustainability, because this pandemic is happening as of now, and if it continues for long, then it's a matter of not how much money you're going to generate, but it's a matter of, will I be there when the pandemic ends? So it's sustainability layer.
Now, I think it's a very worrying trend. When you talk about sustainability, it means companies might end up using all that is within their resources. So basically, Dr. Exen Iraki, I mean, the question right now would be, how then companies, how can companies right now begin to generate a sense of income and revenue so that they can be able to stay afloat during this pandemic?
I think that's simple economics or simple accounting. Just reduce your costs. And it so happens that one of the biggest costs in the organization or in the firm happens to be labor costs. So there are two ways to reduce the labor costs. Either you let some people go home, you combine departments, but an easier way is to use technology. In fact, the silver lining in COVID-19 is that companies are going to identify areas where there has been a lot of waste, and there's a time to reduce that waste and become profitable. And you're hoping that by becoming profitable, you also become sustainable, as my friends put it. I think profitability and sustainability are intertwined. Because COVID-19 is not going to be forever. So we don't want COVID-19 to come to an end and we find that we have no organization, we have no farms. So I think the most important thing now is for farms to reduce their costs in such a way that they become sustainable. I know for sure that by trying to reduce your costs, some people are going to suffer, employees might lose jobs. Some of those jobs might never come again. But I think it's a time to become focused, to find out where your waste is, where you can use technology, where you can become more efficient. And believe it or not, if we go through coronavirus or COVID-19, we shall have a chance to expand the businesses again. There will be pent-up demand, and then the businesses will expand, and those who lost their jobs will end up getting their jobs. However, we need to go beyond companies. This is where the government comes in. I saw in Canada and the UK, the government is helping companies get some soft loans. The government is guaranteeing some salaries so that once the COVID-19 goes, then those companies can continue as they were. And I think one of the reasons why we go queuing to vote for our readers at midnight, why we queue for hours voting for those readers, is the time they need to start up and help the companies. Because although we say the government has no business in business, that is just a cliche. I think it is true the government has business in business. And this is the time they should help government businesses start up, become sustainable, and be able to go over coronavirus or COVID-19.
There is a question of unemployment. As I listen to you, Dr. Iraki, you're mentioning that basically the labor force will be reduced, and that means more people will lose their jobs. Already in Kenya, the unemployment rate is very high, and the government has been trying to cut it down. So what does this mean for the unemployment rate in Kenya and for the number that will be reflected in terms of unemployment? James, if you can answer that question.
We cannot go away from unemployment, and just as how the Dr. is saying, there are people who will lose jobs, there are people who are losing jobs. So it's a matter of aligning yourself. Something that I want to say is we find that with automation, yes, there are jobs that become redundant, but there are also jobs that are created. There are people, those machines, there are people now, things like data science, things like computer science, things that deal now that those now automated machines do come up. So it's a matter of now people trying to get to acquire these skills, and because right now people are at home, you can now, this is the time because people have some free time, this is how people can actually learn a new skill, that a skill that will help them now become relevant in the going concern. Because yes, a company will now become automated, but yes, and now employees will now, for example, lose their jobs. After this pandemic ends, I don't think these are jobs that will ever come back. And for that reason, somebody now needs to sit down and align themselves to businesses that either are going to go on, and also jobs that we think that are actually going to be demandable, and these jobs that are actually going to be there in the future.
All right. Well, Dr. Iraki, even as we look at job losses, we're looking at also SMEs and the impact COVID-19 has on them. Most of them are said to survive, at least, most of them don't even survive beyond 2 years. And so what does this mean for the rate of survival for SMEs?
By the way, somebody argued recently that the SMEs might survive better than the big corporations. And there's a good reason why I'm very optimistic about SMEs. They're very flexible and they're very agile. And I'll give you a good example. The other day, Minister Mutahi Kagwe came and said and reported that we must start wearing masks in public. Within a few days, I'm seeing hawkers hawking masks on the streets. I don't think the company in Kitui and the company in Eldoret that are supposed to produce those masks have taken them to the market. So the SMEs might be small, they might be very vulnerable to collapsing or dying, but they're also very flexible. They are more innovative. They're able to do things that companies will take a long time to do. So that is, we should not be very worried about SMEs because they'll be able to adjust. And as they adjust, they will become more innovative. I'm sure you always notice that anytime it rains, you don't know where the umbrellas come from. You suddenly see umbrellas on the streets. So even with COVID-19, our SMEs will try and become flexible and become innovative. But we should also support them where we can. I don't understand why the government, both county and national governments, cannot give them some soft loans or some interest-free loans, or some loans that are going to be guaranteed by the county government or national government. And when things turn around, they can always pay back that money. Because as we talk, the informal sector, the SMEs and so on, employ about 83% of the Kenyan workforce. That is very significant. And if you look at the stimulus package that the government announced the other day, it was mostly focusing on employed people, the formal sector. So we should not forget the informal sector because it employs the largest number of people, and it's also a very big contributor to employment in this country.
Well, even as you talk about the fact that we have SMEs, and you've mentioned that right now there might be a growing preference for locally made products, that's something else that brings about the question of globalization. Do you think there might be a renewed, effort against globalization? But before we go into that, there is a caller on standby. Hello?
Hapo habari yako?
Nzuri sana.
Huyu ni John Adama kutoka Kigoma.
Sawa sawa.
Ya, ningependa kusema hivi kweli biashara tumeandika kwa njia moja au nyingine, mbili, tatu, mpaka huko karibu. Hizi zimeandika kabisa watu sasa. Na ningependa kuomba mambo mawili yafuatayo. Kama serikali ingekuwa inasikiliza kilio chetu, viongozi wale tunaowachagua ni wakati huu wangejitokeza na hata kusaidia watu, aidha wale walio na mapato wamepoteza kazi, biashara zimesimama, aidha serikali kuwapatia, mimi napendekeza kuwapatia 10,000 shule wajisaidia wakati mgumu wa corona, ingekuwa ni vizuri sana. Jambo la pili ninataka kusema namna hiyo, mimi ninapenda sheria zinazotolewa na Wizara ya Afya, na ninaziunga mkono kufa na kupona, kuhakikisha watu wanaonawa mikono na ningependa kusema namna hii, hata kama corona tutaidhibiti, tutaishinda na tutaitupilia mbali, hizo sheria ziendelee, kwa maana ukiangalia mikono ya watu ni safi. Ukiangalia hali ya watu ni nzuri kabisa.
Hygiene imekuwa mzuri.
Zile sheria ambazo zimetolewa na Wizara ya Afya.
Sawa. Thank you so much for your sentiments. We appreciate your sentiments. I didn't get the name of the caller. However, we appreciate his sentiments and his contribution to this discussion. Dr. Iraki and James, I think you've listened to what he's saying. He's basically talking about the fact that, in fact, I think Dr. Iraki had mentioned that the government needs to put something aside. And I think also, James, you mentioned that instead of giving them food stuff, give them some money to do something.
Yes.
James, if you can hear me.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yeah, but that's basically, I think, what he's talking about. And I think we'd really mentioned, and I think that is a sentiment echoed. Of course, he's mentioned there the whole idea of hygiene. He's saying Kenyans' hands have never been as clean as they've been the last couple of days.
I'm almost turning white on my hands.
And the paranoia of using sanitizers everywhere you go. I mean, you touch your steering wheel, like for me, and I sanitize. Touch the gate, sanitize. I mean, it's become something like a paranoia. But gentlemen, before we take a break, what did you want to say?
And also, people are becoming aware of things that things that people touch on a daily basis. You find that always touching things here and there, you start avoiding.
And also coughing. There are people who don't have the, the etiquette of at least covering your mouth when you're coughing. So I think now people are more careful. It's much better.
The basics.
Well, before we take a short break, I know I had mentioned something on globalization. The fact that if then most countries, even Kenya, begins to have a preference for locally made products, do you think there will be a renewed resistance towards globalization? If I can just shoot that question to you, Dr. Iraki.
I think even before we got COVID-19, we still had a backlash against globalization. Remember the American-Chinese trade war? It was all about globalization. Because if you look at the history of globalization, some countries benefited more than others. But on average, the whole world benefited from globalization. So what COVID-19 is going to do is to make countries think of diversification, so that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. So if there's a disruption in future, at least you have some local capacity to produce goods and offer services. But I don't think globalization is going to end, because no country can be self-sustaining, and very important, all countries will always look for bigger markets for their goods and services. So COVID-19 will give globalization just arrest, but once we go over COVID-19, globalization, I'm sure will be back with obedience.
All right, gentlemen, I want us to take a short break. When we return, of course, we've talked a lot about the impact on the negative side, but I know indeed there are winners and losers during this COVID-19 pandemic. And so we'll take a short break right now. When we return, we'll look at those areas and, of course, much, much more. Remember, you can call in through the number on your screen, and you can also engage us through our social media platforms. That is TV47KE on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Remember to tell us where you're writing from. And by the way, if you have a business, I'll mention again, this is the time to write that question and ask this gentleman with a great wealth of knowledge. New Week takes a short break. We'll be back shortly.
For more inquiries, please email ads@tv47.co.ke or simply call us on 0748 205 604.
My name is Sujata Kotam Raju. I'm the National General Secretary of Hindu Council of Kenya. Namaskar to my dear sisters and brothers. Now this is the time everyone will have to take the responsibility to fight against this virus, not to spread further in this country. If at all, if you want to go out, maintain the social distance. Avoid going to the enclosed areas like supermarket, temples, churches, any religious functions. Avoid shaking your hands and hugs, any form of physical contact. You can just say Namaste. For more information, dial 719 or *719#. Kamesha Corona.
If you just joined us, you're watching New Week right here on TV47. Tonight's discussion, basically the impact of COVID-19 on businesses. And of course, I have a panel with me that is Dr. Xen Iraki, who is an economics analyst, and also James Iraya, who is a business analyst. Gentlemen, we've looked at the negative impact of COVID-19 on businesses. I just want us to look at the positives, because I'm aware that there are people who are actually making a lot more money right now than they ever made before. Would you be able to tell us some of these businesses that are making a lot of money right now, James?
Some of the businesses that are right now that are booming is the pharmaceutical companies. You can find now things like masks. People are able to develop masks, able to do sanitizers, so they help. You also find businesses that are also doing well is now the online business, where you find now people who are used to now going and buying something are now opting to now, for example, send maybe with the touch of your phone, you're able to order the thing and is able to come. So you're finding now this online distributor or online merchants like people like Jumia, people like Glovo. Those are now businesses that are thriving because now people are opting now to use their services. And those are some of the, I can say right now that I would say actually doing well.
Well, Dr. Iraki, do you think some of these companies that are doing better right now might help the economy in terms of maybe just being a bit stable?
Yes, they are definitely going to help the economy, because some of the people losing jobs in other sectors might get jobs in this sector that are thriving. I remember going to one supermarket the day before yesterday, and I am very frequent in that supermarket. I always find the parking full of cars. This time it was full of motorbikes. And guess what they were doing? They were taking deliveries to people who want to buy online. So I think there's a positive side of this COVID-19. There are certain industries that we look down upon, like motorbikes and so on, are going to start doing very well. But that apart, I would want to think beyond COVID-19 and be a bit futuristic. I think what we should be thinking about now is what is going to happen after COVID-19.
Indeed.
Which jobs are going to, which sectors are going to do very well? There's an example that has been given in history about Isaac Newton and what happened to him when there was a pandemic, sometimes around 1600. And he left the university and went to stay in the countryside, which was more peaceful and there was less risk of diseases. And he sat and thought and was very innovative and came up with the concept of calculus. So I think people should take this meditation period to become innovative, to think about the future. What are some of the ideas that you have been thinking about that you have never implemented? I think instead of being very sorrowful and always being subdued, the time we need to become innovative. That idea you have been thinking about, that book you wanted to write, that project you wanted to start, that something you wanted to design, this is the time. I think every bad situation can be converted into something positive.
Well, Dr. Iraki, even as you talk about the positives and the fact that people can now start looking futuristically, in fact, that is the direction I'd like to take this discussion. And just to look at businesses right now, of course, there are people who are probably asking, okay, fine, the business I had right now, the only way I can survive is by going digital, by going on social media. I think, James, you mentioned most people are preferring getting products or buying stuff online as opposed to going there physically. So I just want to be able to give, the people who are watching right now, what type of businesses would you advise, James, for people to venture into during this time that can also survive them after COVID-19 is over?
There's normally online work. Kenyans are known to do that. Actually, Kenyan students are normally known to do that. And it's actually a business that people can venture. And I remember the government a few years ago launched something called Ajira. It's people can actually look at the website, learn some new skills, learn some doing at least collective data for some people. These are small jobs that I would advise business people even who are salaried, because right now people are being told to stay at home. This is the time where somebody can now somebody can sit down on their computer, on their phone, and now maybe, for example, start doing sales for companies. You can actually come and approach companies who are the brick and mortar and tell them, the way I can advertise for you guys and give you a small commission. You can do this and come and say, the way I can come and do for you some online work and here and there. So it's a matter of, just how the Dr. is saying, be innovative, sit down and look at what is it that people want, and also now see how can I align myself to that.
Can I get you?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Some of the areas I can think of offhand. One of them is finance. Finance is an area that can do very well online, buying stocks, selling stocks, consulting, and so on. Education is a big industry. In fact, before I came for this particular discussion, I was having an online class. And people have been saying you cannot go for online classes. Students are very excited about it. And even after COVID-19, we shall still have online classes. Logistics is a big area because if people are going to be buying online, then somebody must transport those items from where they are bought, or where they are manufactured to the consumer. I believe data analysis is a very big area. We are going to have a lot of data being analyzed. A lot of consulting will be needed. And very proudly, areas like dowry negotiations. People can now negotiate for dowries online.
Well, Dr. Iraki, even as we talk about,
I know side hustle.
Some people are actually speculating and saying, you know, this pandemic might extend to 2021. If this happens, you know, what does it mean for businesses, James? Because, of course, we all hope that it ends in the next 3 months or 2 months. But if it actually persists for a couple of months, say 6 to 7 or more months, what does it mean for businesses?
We were doing some analysis with the company that I actually work with, and we found that if it extends to now 2 years, 3 years, there are some companies that will now abandon the market. Sit down, focus on research and development, and come up with new products. So if it extends to 2021, companies are now to really invest in research and development and come up with products, new products that are now the market demands. Because I was just saying earlier in the interview, you're actually seeing now and seeing that automation is part of things that are coming up now, and automation also comes up with new jobs and new works that are required. So for that, companies now need to sit down and actually come up with new products that actually the market demands. So if it extends, and I hope it doesn't extend, because they're saying a vaccine you can come as early as June, but that is without being tested fast. But hopingly that if it does extend to 2021, the company need to refocus and maybe even change their business model and come up with new products.
Well, Dr. Iraki, what do you think will work for most of these companies? When James talks about new products that will be suitable for the market, what do you think will be the nature of the market at that moment?
One of the things that I have is a lot of faith in human ingenuity and human creativity and innovation. So even if this extends to 2021 or 2022, I guarantee you that businesses will adjust the new realities.
All right.
We had a case about 20 years ago when a country was suffering from civil war. And the civil war one time came to an end. And believe it or not, people were taken to hospital because they could not understand how they could live in peace. They had adjusted living in war.
Well,
so even
Dr. Iraki, if I can just interject you a bit. Dr. Iraki, sorry, I just want to interject you a bit because we have a caller from Rwanda. Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, this is 47. Fine. I'm Mr. Moniki. I wanted to make my... Fine.
Well, it seems like we have a little bit of a technical problem there with the sound of the caller. I hope you will be able to call again just so that we can hear exactly what you're saying. However, Dr. Iraki, you were saying something. You can just go ahead.
I was saying that even if COVID-19 goes up to 2021, human beings have a lot of ability to adjust to circumstances and events. And I was giving an example of a civil war coming to an end and people getting problems because they don't understand how they can live in peace. So I want to give a few examples of such bad events that human beings faced or the humanity faced, and they overcame them. Mm-hmm. We had World War I, we had World War II. Like World War II was a very bad war, a very big war. And then after that, we enjoyed one of the greatest periods of unprecedented economic prosperity. We had the Great Depression, we overcame that. In Kenya, we had Mau Mau and other very negative economic shocks. So I think with the time, people are going to start adjusting, and we are going to recover over this. We are going to recover over this. So I don't want people to become very negative and believe that COVID-19 is the end of things. I think we are going to adjust. Businesses, Individuals, corporations, and government are going to adjust, and we are going to overcome COVID-19.
Well, I would be interested to know, say COVID-19 ends in the next 2 months or 3 months, and businesses try to go back to normal. Well, some people speculate that there will not be any normal situation again, that there will be a new normal. James, do you think that is the case? And if indeed there will be a new normal, what will we be looking at in terms of the new normal?
Actually, I do believe there will be a new normal, but the new normal will come up with people will now become hygienic, where we'll find now it's less of greetings. You saw people now greeting with their legs. You now find now people will now sanitize, people will wash their hands. People will now avoid contact with many people. So things like conferences, because right now I'm not in the studio with you. The doctor is in his house. I am also in my house. So you find things that now are opting to do things like the online conferences. These are things that even companies, even people, rather than going so far for a meeting that can be done within 5 minutes, wherever you are. These are things now. It's not that it will change our day-to-day businesses or our day-to-day lives. It's only that a few tweaks here and there that I can say will now make us have a new normal.
Dr. Iraqi, looking at the economic situation as it is right now, and perhaps trying to analyze the likely future for a country like Kenya, what would you say will be the new normal for Kenya, if there will indeed be a new normal?
I think there will be a new normal, but it will probably be not the normal we have in mind. For example, there will be a new normal in terms of relationships. That's one area we are forgetting. When you cannot shake people's hands, when you cannot hug your friends, when you cannot visit your friends, what type of new relationships are going to emerge with the time? How do young men and women be courting, for example, before they marry? We have to think about the new normal in terms of new businesses. Which new businesses are going to emerge as COVID-19 comes to an end? Are we going to have businesses we never thought about or we never dreamt about? I believe there will be a new normal in terms of regulations. The regulators may have to come up with new regulations to fit the new normal spawned by COVID-19. Whether it is in business, whether it is in marketing, whether it is in pharmaceuticals, there will be new regulations. And of course, there will be a new normal in terms of status symbols. For example, we have always thought that going abroad is very prestigious. People go to the airport to wait for you and shout for you and drop you there. And if you have a passport with very many stamps of many countries, you are considered to be a very cool person. But with COVID-19, there might be a new status symbol, not traveling abroad. And even politics, which is very important in this country, might come up with a new normal. Might we start now voting online instead of going for campaigns and so on? Might BBI rallies become irrelevant? So I think there will be a new normal, and we better be ready for them as individuals, as corporations, and even as governments, whether a local government or county government or the national government.
Dr. Iraqi, for those people, even as we talk about the new normal, of course, we have to face the fact that some companies have lost some of their employees, they've made losses, and of course, they're wondering what will happen after COVID, during COVID. What would you tell them in terms of, is it gloom and doom right now for them? Is there a hope for such companies after COVID?
There's a lot of hope. I think I said, and I'll say it again, that human beings are gifted in terms of being creative, being ingenious, and being innovative. And very important, being able to adjust. So I believe despite COVID-19, we are going to start adjusting to the new realities. People are going to become innovative. People are going to see opportunities they have never seen. Nobody thought that somebody can make money from masks. So we are going to see new opportunities cropping up as time goes on. So it's not just gloom. There are silver linings that we must exploit if we are patient and we have time to be innovative.
Well, James, even as we look at hope, and I like what Dr. Iraqi is talking about, it's not all gloom and doom. There's, of course, hope, as he mentions. James, I think the question would be, even for those companies that have greatly been affected by COVID-19 in terms of making lots of losses, huge losses, what will be the potential recovery plan for most businesses, James?
The recovery plan right now, okay, as I even said earlier, during the interview, was companies right now will really focus on sustainability, and I just as Dr. is saying, innovation also comes to the company. It's a matter of now, if your product now is not getting to the market, if the market actually does not need your product as of now, as a company, how do I now innovate? How do I become innovative and create a product that is needed? For example, I'll give an example. You find the beer industry right now is being affected so much, but you find that part of the raw materials that beer uses can be used as sanitizers. So this is a company that can now say, hey, so now we're also selling beer and also selling sanitizers. And you see, this is now being innovative at the moment that we are in. So it's a matter of now saying they really need, because in any company, they normally have a search and development department that really focuses on what is the next thing, what is it that going to be, what is the next trend, and what is the next product that people need. And even if you go back to 2008, the economic crisis that happened in 2008, we find that the companies that did prosper after the crisis were the companies that actually invested so much in research and development, they were able to come up with products that the market now needed.
So it's all about innovation, being creative and adapting to the trends as they are. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Exen Iraki, economics analyst, thank you for making time for us. And of course, also James Iraya, business analyst. We appreciate your time, your views and your sentiments regarding tonight's topic. Of course, we also appreciate those of you who took time to register your presence and your audience tonight through making calls to us during the show. We appreciate your time. And we also hope that this discussion has been beneficial to you. Remember, New Week always looking at developing stories and stories that touch your life directly or indirectly. This is a show to watch every Monday, 9 p.m. My name is Leangare, and our sign language interpreter tonight is Anwai Rimu. Thank you. Until next week, same time, same place for New Week. My name is Leangare. Once more, have a good night and God bless.
Peterson, tumefutwa wote.
Yawa, pia wewe?
Tumeachiliwa.
Si pia wewe unaweza anzisha biashara yako?
Na hii economy venye iko tough sana.
But not too tough for Mwananchi Credit.
Tutafanya aje?
Si niko na 5 good cars. We can get a quick logbook loan approved within 6 hours.
Nataka kuanzisha salon na spa. Hii haitatosa.
Si tuko na title deed spare. We can still get more money using them. Get a quick approval within 6 hours using your logbook or title deed. Do not get stuck. Call Mwananchi Credit today. Si nilikwambia.
You are a big smart joke.
Mwananchi Credit. Investor in people.
The coronavirus pandemic has not just infected thousands of people around the world. Sadly, thousands of people have also lost their lives.
The virus is here in Kenya, and unless we do something about it, thousands may die.
Our healthcare system cannot bear the burden of this virus.
If too many people become infected, we all know that our healthcare system will not be able to handle the pressure.
We stand to lose many, many lives.
You, me, or our loved ones could lose our lives.
To avoid this from happening,
you and I have a part to play.
Sanitize your hands. Wash and disinfect your hands regularly.
Wash your hands frequently with soap and water.
Don't touch your face.
Please observe social distancing.
Avoid going out of town or being in groups with so many people.
And most importantly, you must stay at home.
Please stay at home.
Stay home.
Don't go out to meet your friends.
Stop your children from going out to play in groups. In fact, limit anything that takes you out of the house and follow government directives.
Please let us follow government directives. Stay at home.
You must stay at home.
Dear Kenyans, stay at home and save lives.
Stay at home
and save lives.
Stay at home and save lives. I beg.
Stay at home. Let's stop the spread of coronavirus.
Care for me as I care for you, and together
we will beat this thing.
Stay at home and save lives.
The coronavirus is spreading rapidly across the world, and currently there is no cure or vaccine against it. It spreads through tiny droplets when infected people speak, cough, or sneeze. These droplets can land on surfaces to be picked up by hands and are impossible to see with the naked eye. But just because you can't see them doesn't mean that they are not there. And you may get infected if you touch your face, nose, mouth, or eyes. To help stop the spread of the virus, we all need to do the 5. 1. Follow these steps to wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 40 seconds. 2. Cover your mouth with your bent elbow whenever you cough or sneeze. 3. Avoid touching your face. 4. Avoid crowded places. Keep a safe distance from other people. 5. Stay home if you can, especially if you have any of the symptoms. For more information, visit www.who.int.
Want to grow your business? You can simply do so on our 24-hour nationwide TV station. Email us on ads@tv47.co.ke. Or simply call us on 0748 205 604.
0748 205 604.
Talk to us today, because the growth of your business
is our business.
Right here on TV47.
The following program contains scenes suitable for adults only. Viewership is restricted to persons aged 18 and above.